Hello, everybody. Welcome to Om School Live. We are here for, as some of our viewers are saying, so much love. Well, today really is we're going to be calling upon some love for this topic. That is for sure. Today is called Photoshopped Reality. And we have Master Spiritual Teacher here, GP Walsh, who's going to be helping us with finding truth in a landscape of illusion. So when this one, I love. This was something I was really looking forward to, Photoshopped reality. And the more I thought about this, GP, I wanted to come at this as it's when we think we're photoshopping something, maybe we think we're coming to a point we want to reveal or showcase something more acceptable, more beautiful, more acceptable. But in reality, are we maybe just really in behind the scenes photoshopping our fears and what is unacceptable? And so I wanted to bring that right out of the ballgame here.
Oh wow! Well, first, I don't. Isn't it interesting that I could use that word as a verb?
Yes, photoshopping.
I mean, it's a noun. It's a name of a product, and it's become photoshopped. It's now a verb.
Yes.
And it's enhanced, basically. You are making an image that isn't there. You're creating an image to conform to an ideal that doesn't really exist. And so you take yourself or whatever you're doing, and you make all the adjustments so it fits this model, right? Which means the original is unacceptable. Now, at one point in my career, one of my clients was Victoria's Secret. I did some computer systems for them. Actually, a bunch of they were the main one, and there was a bunch of other ones as well. And I met a lot of not the supermodels, but a lot of the models. I saw the process they actually went through. Right. I saw the original photos. I think it was the Angels campaign at the time or something like that.
Oh, how
and
fitting
I
for
saw
you.
the photoshopped versions, and they were night and day. You know, I mean, they were pretty women. They were attractive women, but they were flawed. Little bulges here and little imperfections there. All of that gone, right? And it was so stylized. It was so narrowed down to create an ideal that nobody can live up to. As I said in the email, that's just the fashion industry and cosmetics and stuff is just the tip of the iceberg. We do it to everything. I mean, what is Facebook but a bunch of people pretending to be somebody they're not?
Right. And we do get to share the reality. We get to share our reality. Let's say with Facebook or something. And cosmetic companies, they're portraying this thing that you might achieve in your mind, in your reality, and with the accepted reality. But then you kind of get lost in well, what is reality? Because that's what we're going with here. And in fact, I love you said it's a model that we've fit something into that says these are the parameters that we're willing to accept so that everybody feels good. But do we feel good? Is a big question.
Don't.
And I often think about chefs who not Photoshop but do their plating, and there's a certain model that their plating must fit into. And sometimes I think, I'll get this beautiful plate I don't even want to eat it because it's so pretty, or I don't know where to start because it's not normal how I would eat. And
Right.
it makes it not just inaccessible, but almost not pleasurable. It doesn't, somewhere in me, it doesn't feel right. So
Yeah.
How
The photography, the advertising photography of food. I mean, the stuff they're actually photographing isn't food. It's made stuff to make it look and the steam coming off it and stuff like that. It is basic. It's toxic. You couldn't actually eat the thing that they're photographing.
I watched the show on the melting cheese. It's not cheese when they show, because you're like, how come my burger doesn't look like that? How come my grilled cheese sandwich doesn't pull apart?
Yeah, because it's like paint.
Yes, yeah. And then why do we have these standards? So okay, yes, this is where I want to go with standards and fears. Because if there's a standard set, I immediately go, ooh, I might not make it. I might not make that standard.
Right.
And now I have a fear. It's immediately, it's like, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, that's the point. That's a standard is a constriction of possibilities, right? And if I don't happen to fit into them, that very primitive fear of rejection, of abandonment, is going to kick in. If there's no standard, there's no fear. If the standard is simply you as you are, then there's no fear. I don't have to work to be me. I already am, right? But there's, I mean, it's very, very old. All of the Abrahamic religions start from that premise that you're fallen, you're a mess. You know, as you are, you're not even good enough to win your own pardon.
Right. Somebody else has got it.
And I mean, it's just logical that would extend to everything. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I mean, I'm not enough. Period.
Yes.
End of story. And because our need to belong, our need to be a part of the group, our need to be accepted is so strong, anything that holds out a carrot of the potential of getting that is going to be almost irresistible. And marketing and advertising people know that.
Yeah. I would like to just, let's talk about the pain. That sounds horrible. Let's talk about the pain that is associated with long-term photoshopping. And I'll use this example for a moment. This is decades and decades ago, a friend who just so afraid of revealing that their bank account wasn't what they wanted other people, because the other people relied on them to have that bank account look like the part of having that bank account. And the stress, they should have gone bankrupt probably so much earlier than they had. But so I'm using, it's not like photoshopping, but it is, because it's
Yeah, it is.
we're trying to hide that, but there's a pain associated so deep, created by the photoshopping. How long can we even sustain photoshopping? Like, what makes us
Some people do it their whole lives. And now cosmetic surgery. I mean, you can have real life photoshopping,
That's true. Yes.
and they go on and on and on, and then sometimes they go a bit too far. And just because celebrities and like that don't want to age, right?
Right.
And in fact, it's not that they just want to. I think it was Isabella Rossellini, just this beautiful woman. She was she's an actress and a model. She was the model for L'Oreal, and she lost her contract with them. And they said, "What happened?" She says, "I made the mistake of turning 40."
Oh, see, that's like so embedded in there, like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was simply she at that age done, right?
Do we Photoshop what's not because so I'm looking at that situation. She felt that, not she felt, sorry, the company, her employers felt that she was no longer purposeful. Her use was done, completed.
Correct.
Do we Photoshop the things that we feel don't have a purpose, or just are purely not acceptable?
Well, you have to see that the purpose is horrid and distorted.
Yes.
Right? I mean, their purpose is to instill within people a feeling of inferiority that somehow their product is going to correct. That's the whole point of it.
Problem
right?
solution.
Right? They create the problem and offer you the solution. It's that simple. They create the disease and then offer you the cure. Right? And as long as that becomes ingrained enough in the culture, I mean, they don't have to try to sustain it anymore, and now it is. It's pervasive. You can't get away from it. And now it's not just women, it's men. I mean, I've seen a couple of videos on how they Photoshop the men and the like. And it covers everything. It is a fear to be ourselves as we actually are, right? I think it was Picasso who said, "Artists and lovers know the beauty of imperfection."
Oh. When, oh, what's that? Hold on. Okay, so we don't know ourselves. Let's say we have not done a lot of self-inquiry. Maybe we're starting. We have lots of people here that are just starting or have done this for so long. Is it that the more we get to know ourselves or do the self-inquiry, we just suddenly we accept ourselves, or do we just know we don't care anymore, or does something actually change? Like, is there a shift?
Well, eventually, remember, it's all a matter of perception, right? The person who is anorexic has a perceptual distortion. They look in the mirror, and it doesn't matter how skinny they are, they see a fat person. Now, that's a perceptual distortion. They're not actually seeing what is there. Or the focus of attention. Somebody will look and their focus will be on that one body part that's bad, right? And then that fills the whole screen. You can't see anything other than that. These are perceptual distortions. If with self-inquiry and doing that kind of inner work, you get dominion over these perceptions. You see that the perception is just a perception. And thus it loses its grip on you. It can't suck you into that story, and then you begin to see that the different models, the different ideas, the different ways of looking at it are all artificial. You see through the whole delusion that is our modern culture, and from there you begin to step into self-acceptance. You begin to see yourself as an absolutely unique, in all space and time, being, and you gradually drop the comparisons with others and that and the like. And of course, as you do that, you will become aware of your inherent beauty, and that will have an effect on the physical body. The way you show up, the way you carry yourself, all of which project this feeling of confidence and presence that is what people really do find beautiful. Right? It's very attractive because energetically we want to be that.
Yes.
But without the inner work, we cannot see past the facade. We have no criteria for feeling or perceiving on a deeper level. And that's why the work is absolutely essential. We always suffer from distorted perceptions. We're not seeing things as they are. And at the essence of it, we're not seeing ourselves as we are. If you see yourself as you are, you can't help but be filled with self-acceptance and love. You can't.
Oh. It's
not possible anymore.
I was just going to ask, can we Photoshop energy? Like, you can't. I don't think you can. So that's why I was saying that. Like,
no.
Who you are energetically, you can't Photoshop and go.
No, you can't con the universe. It sees right through that nonsense.
Yeah, it's a different language, I think, that we're unable to confuse or mix up. And I like that you're highlighting it's a perception. If you go in one part of the country and image is beautiful one place, that you take that same image, go to another part of the country, and they're like, oh, no, that's not, So
Marilyn Monroe was a size 12.
Right, yes, exactly.
It's like, what?
So what has made these, why have we gone downhill, so to speak? I am sure there's such lovely things out there as well, but with a lot of our models that we're following, why have they become so hurtful, painful, distorted in a negative way?
Well, it's cultural, of course, right? It's cultural, of course. We have, when you don't know what you are, when you really don't have a solid sense of your own, a sense of identity and therefore self-worth, you're going to be thrown hither and yon. It's inevitable. You're going to be easily manipulated. You're going to be easily seduced, because there's no criteria there for for assessing anything from a position of truth, right? Therefore, the place from which you are assessing it is extremely unstable, right, and is forever shifting, right? So now you're always seeing the world from this place. That happens individually. It happens culturally. And the more the culture gets divorced from anything that's concrete, a reference point that's reliable, and the only one we have is nature, the earth. Right? That's the reference point of life. But the ego has gotten so detached from that it's creating a reference point that has no stability to it. And it can hold for a while when there's kind of a tacit agreement with it. But as that begins to collapse, it has to hold on through force. And that's why we see Christianity in particular becoming increasingly aggressive and dogmatic and fundamental and judgmental, because that not the actual teachings of Christ, which have nothing to do with Christianity as it has become, but because it has become completely irrelevant in this world, right? It enforces itself through fear and pain. The same thing happens with the political system. The U.S. is all over the world aggressively with the military. Why? Because it's failed. And when a system fails, right, and it's on its last leg, it gets aggressive to try to sustain it, to try to recover the sense of stability that it once had. But if it had been truly stable, if it had been grounded in truth, it would be stable, and you wouldn't have to defend it, and it wouldn't shift on you. But there's no such thing as a culture that's rooted in truth. That's yet to come.
There's still hope. You mentioned, I love that about when maybe that's how we can start recognizing when things are being photoshopped, because it's being enforced or reinforced with pain and fear. So if we're feeling, when we do that, just even that inquiry of what am I feeling, if we feel fear come up or pain come up, then is that a place to start with a self-inquiry, saying, okay, where does this fear and pain feel like? And is that how we can follow the thread, of where perhaps this Photoshop is being done?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because the photoshopping, right, as a metaphor, is simply I'm presenting a version of me that's not really me, right? And the only reason I do that is because I'm afraid, right? I'm afraid that I'm going to be rejected. I'm going to be left out. I'm going to be thrown aside, kicked to the curb. And so we present that which is acceptable. I mean, this is so primal in us. It's what kids do all the time, right? This is the existential crisis we all experience. We have to become somebody we're not. And in our modern media saturated world, that the images we can see can be so completely divorced from any degree of reality, and presented as if it was some kind of truth, right? So you got the guy standing there with two supermodels on his arms in front of his 10 cars, in front of the big mansion, right? Selling his program on how to get rich on the internet, right? And most of those are pure scams. They're lies. Right? They stood in front of some house in a neighborhood, right? Hired a couple of people. Yes. It's really quite funny to give that impression, right? And I just have to keep getting it back. If we can, instead of trying to participate in the ruse, and instead turn around to look at the fear itself, you can trace it all the way back to its origin, and that was simply it was rejected as a child. It sounds mind-numbingly simple, because it is. It all stems from that. This entire culture would be completely different if that wasn't the case. If there was all the people were growing up with with self-acceptance, accepting themselves as they are, comparing themselves to nobody, we would not be living in the world we're living in.
Yes.
End of story.
I have this perfect example to share, and I have a question about it because now I'm wondering. So I have well, we all have friends, and we all want to go have tea at our friend's house or something, or visit. And I have one absolutely wonderful girlfriend, and she's a lovely home, and she will go like spend 3 days, prior to cleaning it and preparing this to serve and food and everything. But then when I'm going to come over, she's like, "Oh, you can come over anytime. I don't have to clean for you." And
Now that's a friend.
yeah, and at first I was like, "Hey, wait a second, I'm not clean." No, but not clean.
Yeah.
It was such a compliment to say, "You can see me as I am. I don't have to put my makeup on or clean. Now just come over whenever you need to come over. That's fine." And that's so interesting because some other people could have said, "Oh, no, I'm special. She spends 3 days cleaning for me and goes out and buys all the special food and delicacies." But
It's
her
not
mother,
for you, baby. It's for her.
So she was raised, you prepare your, now, so this is not to go against any beautiful, honoring or ceremony or, like if,
Right.
like I like to snazzy things up too. There's some people I just wouldn't want walking in there, but where's that line of, yes, it's acceptable to spend the 3 days to clean up. You're having a party and some guests over and you want to make it special. Or is it where they say, "No, you absolutely cannot come over. My house is a mess and I will meet you at the coffee shop." Like, is that where does that, how do we know when we're like insane or something about it?
Well, you have to inquire into it, right? If it's a matter of somebody shows up unexpected and they see you as you are, and it's creates suffering. Well, there's something to explore there, right? I mean, it really is. Does it suffer or not? I mean, sometimes this place is a disaster. Let's meet at the coffee shop, and it's and it's a fact, And this gets this way. If I'm in the middle of some kind of a project, this place is a disaster. And then, because I like it neat, I will then, after, I will just put everything away and I'll get it back and I'll vacuum, I'll do all the things to get it back, and then some other project will come and it'll all go to hell in a handbasket again.
Right. So it's that comfortability of saying it will go into like, oh, I love the flow that we talk about this way and then a little bit this way. And
Yes.
So it can be an explosion, a mess, but then, so if somebody showed up and, you haven't shaved or whatever, or a project's not done, let's just say you have a deadline and a project's not done because we have a little bit of perfectionism. Because if we think we submit that project, the client may walk, or they might see that you didn't do it well enough. Now that causes suffering, I would think, but it also causes suffering when you cannot turn it in. You cannot, when you're doing if you've ever done an album or recorded, you want to keep going and trying and fixing and doing, but
Yes.
you gotta publish it. You gotta put it out. So
Yes.
is it when it causes that kind of suffering that it's debilitating, or just so afraid of the judgment?
I mean, our fears are at the root of all of our suffering. Right? Fear and desire, right? And they go hand in hand, right? When they're personally owned, and distinguishing between the fear that is simply the organism interacting with the environment, which means there's an immediate danger that I have to deal with, that's completely different than the psychological and emotional fears that are all caused by anticipation and identification, right? And we're anticipating being rejected, and therefore and that triggers the primal fear. The primal fear is very real, right? Because human beings are social critters, right? We need each other, right? We evolved that way, and so it is very important for us to conform. Yeah. But this is the balance, right? A healthy culture, like the primitive hunter-gatherers, it was a balance between your role within the community and your individual nature. There was always this flow that was allowed, right? So one's talents would be recognized, right? And then those talents would be used for the benefit of the whole, right? But it was not our modern way, which is to take people and conform them into a system that doesn't acknowledge them in the slightest. That's the whole Industrial Revolution, where they literally created, like the potato famine in Ireland was created by the British to force them into cities to get them to work in factories.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it was for. And so they wanted people to become machines for them, basically slaves. And our current economic system is just it's just kind of a different form of slavery. There's no real freedom in it.
What do we do when we've done we've self-inquired, and we found out, wow, I've been photoshopping this. I've got some fears here. And let's just say we tap through them. We use some energy work, and we're tapping. We can tap through them. And then we're feeling pretty good, like we're magical. We've done it. It's instant. Voila. And then we step back out into the world, which holds the model, which is expecting the conformity, expecting us to conform. And then now we've worked through that original fear, but now we have this other fear that's now about going, great, I've worked through it, and now they're not accepting me still. Right. What do you do?
Well, yeah, first off, there's two parts of it. If you're in the position where you have done the inner work and now you are conscious of it, you can consciously make concessions to it, right? That's very different than unconsciously conforming. A concession is not a conformance. It is simply an acknowledgement, and it is that in this moment the wise thing to do is this. And simultaneously, there is a need to grow to another level of spiritual maturity, where you can endure the rejection, because it no longer is the threat, right? I'm not going to die, and yes, I may end up alone for a while. Okay, I accept that because I can't do anything else. I can no longer sacrifice myself for that. If the concession I'm asked to make is too great, then I have to be willing to be with the consequences of that, which could be a banishment. It could be an exclusion. It could be a rejection. But the deeper the work goes, the more you're able to deal with that, because it's a fact of life. And when you realize that avoiding that is what makes you a slave, when you can confront that directly, you are free of the demands. You're now living life on your own terms.
You made me think of breakups, and breaking up with somebody, but then I took it to a little bit more family-like. Is a lot of times we might recognize that in order to fit into our own families. We just can't make
they're the worst.
yeah, and we can't do it any longer. But then we have it's that work to say, well, I might have to leave this model. I can no longer conform to this one. The photoshopping is done, and you want to see the real you again. And then there is that fear that, wow, I'm abandoning my family. I'm leaving them, or, well, what will others think of me for being such a horrible person for doing this? But there's a lot wrapped up in dropping the photoshopping act.
Yeah, you have to. At some point, the suffering caused by the conformity is greater than the suffering of leaving it. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you just really have no choice. That's the moment in the hero's journey where you have no choice. You have to leave it. Right? It's just you can never be happy there. Right? Essentially happy. Right? You can have moments of happiness. There's the temporary happiness, and there's the happiness that is essential. It is the happiness that comes from simply being yourself, the effortlessness, the sweetness of just being yourself unapologetically.
That's the ticket right there. It's funny when you mentioned the word skill, and your skills that you have. And if we start photoshopping right from our reality, right from a child, we can never reveal our skills are never revealed. And there's, I think, an oppression that just kind of happens from the voice, who am I, to being able to express that skill that we're here to have and share and enjoy.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Your uniqueness is your value, and but the culture doesn't want your uniqueness. It wants you to fulfill a role within the culture, and it gives no acknowledgement to the individual. I mean, it pays lip service, individual liberty and all that sort of stuff, but it's bullshit. It's a lie, right? The idea is you are to become enculturated through school, everything to the where you simply fulfill your whole purpose for life is to fulfill the obligations the culture has laid upon you. And these days, that means basically economic.
Just that word, obligations.
Yeah.
I'm obligated, tied to, have to.
Yeah, have to. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's no longer, it's the gun's not to your head, but in a sense it is, because if you don't, you basically you have no income, and you have to have income to survive. So it really is a form of slavery.
Yes. It has been brought, and it feels like that.
Yeah. It does, because it is.
So I like the steps there. That's the first thing, is to become conscious of it, to be aware, like, wow, okay, this is showing up in my life here, and here. Do we just kind of make a list and then like tap through them one at a time? Like, what's the best way to?
Well, you can, and the way most people teach tapping, that's what you do. You just go through the symptoms until they're not there anymore. But when you're doing it as a part of inner reconciliation and self-inquiry, you're trying to get to the root of it, right? Because we can tap away symptoms all day long, but the symptoms are arising from a root. They have a fundamental cause, right? And if that fundamental cause isn't dealt with, you'll just have one symptom after another. It'll just appear someplace else, right? So, and the fundamental cause is always the sense of identity. It is always who you think you are, who you've come to believe yourself to be. And it is the subtlest of all beliefs, because we don't even think about it. It's a belief that's hiding behind your eyeballs.
What would be some examples of who we might believe we are versus when we do that work and we do the self-inquiry? What does it kind of feel like or sound like when we do know who we are?
Peace, a contentment that's hard to describe. You're slow to anger. You're very deliberate. You seem to have access to resources that others don't. You're patient. You're compassionate, because you're unthreatened.
Right.
When you know who you are, you're talking about the truth, which is the only stable place anybody can build. And so while the entire culture may be completely unstable, you're not, because you're now in the truth of you. And that doesn't shift. That doesn't change. So you now become, you can't be threatened, And ultimately there is no fear.
Right. And that's
None.
that's a very different feeling. So unthreatened, not like I'm the most powerful, strongest, I'm standing on the mountain with my, lightning bolt. It's not an overpowering, if unthreatened, like you can't touch me, like untouchable. It's an unthreatened as I have endless. There's so much peace. There's so much of me that doesn't, like, you can't be taken from, you can't be made small, you can't be belittled, you can't lose anything.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't lose anything. Yeah.
Right.
You cannot. So you can't be intimidated. You can't be forced into anything, because you know who you are. You know the truth of you, and that means you have built on the rock and not on sand. Because the truth doesn't change. It is the only stable thing there is. So the truth of you is the only stable thing there is. Anything less than that is going to feel unstable, and that's where the fear and desire arise from.
Right. Yes. Like if we're walking and all of a sudden the ground is a little bit unshaky, you're going to feel unstable. And then if the fear comes up, oh, I fall.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my feeling. I love that you really focus in when we do any kind of, whether it's just a guided meditation or the self-inquiry, it always begins with, what is the feeling? And
Yes.
and when we do that, when we close our eyes and we do what is the feeling, were we focusing on a part of the body, or that we feel like is calling our attention, or just more of a gut feeling?
Well, this is a skill to learn. This kind of allowing. The need is to be with the feelings, and the process is the attention goes to the feelings, and then you notice that there's a feeling, and then there's all the story and ideas and beliefs about the feeling.
Right. Yes.
And before you ever try to do this, these two are so intertwined that you don't know that they're two. You think that my ideas, my story about what's happening is in fact what's happening. My ideas about or concept of my feelings are my feelings, because they arise and the story arises, and it's so fast that it appears as though it's one thing. But when you meditate just on the feeling itself and keep the attention there and notice that the thoughts are there, and then inquire and recognize that the thoughts had to have come second, the feeling had to have been there first, right? The thoughts, it didn't work the other way around. The feeling is much more primary, right? So, okay, so now the feeling is there first. This feeling was there before there were any thoughts. So why are the thoughts the way they are? Well, they could have gone in a million different directions. There's nothing absolute about this concept of the feeling. It's gotten stuck together. It's gotten so associated in me that I think it means this. But had I been slightly different circumstances when I was younger, it would have meant this. So this isn't true. This isn't the truth. And so now I'm going, well, what is the truth? Well, the truth is, at least I'm closer to the truth in the feeling than I am in the mind. So my attention goes more and more into the feeling itself. And more of the story about it just starts to fall away. Because you see, it's secondary. This is direct path. This is a direct inquiry into the feeling itself. And if you pursue that far enough, you find that the actual traumatic material or the real energetic distortion, whatever it is, emerges right from there, where you find that the mind is all analytical in stories about it and trying to interpret it, but the actual information is right there. It knows why it's the way it is. The mind doesn't. And so the more you're with it, the more it reveals itself to you. The more you're willing to be with it without rejecting it, even if it's extremely uncomfortable, the safer it is, which means the more that can come to the surface. And really, sometimes you process what comes to the surface with EFT, but more often than not, you don't have to. That the act of it coming to the surface, you can just stay with it, and it will just dissipate. It'll just go. You don't have to do anything at all, because what you're doing is you're simply creating the inner environment for the energy to do what its nature is to do, which is to adapt to the environment. If the environment's safe, it disposes of everything it had, all the behaviors it created to keep it safe when it wasn't, right? But if you create a safe environment, doesn't need them, throws all those behaviors out. Boom, trauma's gone. And you didn't have to do anything except show up and shut up.
And this is back to that very first word you said, allowing. That jumped out at me more than ever. You do have the yoga of allowing, and I will talk about that just in a moment, everybody. But you just helped me realize right now that how we Photoshop in our lives, it's our story. Our story is the Photoshopping.
Yes.
I get that now. So every belief, every idea, every concept, every story we have is Photoshopping the feeling so that we can present that to somebody with whichever identity that we feel will
Yes.
keep us the safest and the most
Yes.
accepted and loved. And I like that you bring up about being able to sit with that discomfort, because I grew up with a very sick mother. And every time she went to the doctors, which was once a month, and it was like, oh, well, she needs to make sure she has a story about, is she well or getting better or sick? And she relied on that story. Some of us, we actually rely on other people's Photoshopping of us. We rely on the story that others are holding of us, because we're waiting to say, do you like that story? Did that story work for you? And then do you accept me? Like, so you keep that story. You keep that story going of me, and don't let me fall from that pedestal story, because then I won't be
Oh,
accepted.
it's absolutely true. One of the most incredible powers, which is symbolized by the fifth chakra, is the capacity to create an image of yourself in somebody else's mind. And we want that because that's how we reinforce it. Because it is a story. And if we're with the story, when you're really with the story, you can feel how unstable and shaky it is. It is not reliable. So if I can implant it into a bunch of other people who keep feeding me back, I feel more stable. In fact, I'm getting further and further away from the truth of me. But this is what we do. We tell our stories to others. I mean, how many conversations you have with somebody and they go right into their story, right? And you can listen to a story and then say, yeah, I know it. And you know what happened to me? And before you know it, there's just a pity party going on, right?
Exactly. And it's reinforcing it. I think that was so beautiful. And the allowing, I'm just going to pull this in as we go to our quote unquote recess break, where I get to go back into reading the comments you guys are leaving, is about the allowing the feeling to reveal it's the truth, and allowing the stories and those to just dissipate and to
Yeah.
dissolve. To that, I love that. Does yoga of allowing? I feel like everybody could step into the yoga of allowing, but it is something that is on Thinkific. But I don't even know how to direct people to this one, actually. So if there is a beautiful program that GP does, it is called the Yoga of Allowing. And if you're interested in that, I'll put some details there. I just know that's like, that word is so strong for me right now, allowing.
Yeah. Well, all of the I don't have it here. I can edit it really quick
Okay.
because it's really very simple. It's just
I just want to make sure you guys have access to these tools, whether they are videos that GP does or something that you read from him. They're just helpful to walk through
that's
these
it.
processes.
Homeschool.com. Sorry. Wait a
Oh,
minute.
it's
Hold.
dot
It's co. Yeah.
co.
It's
No M.
it's co. Yeah. No M. It's homeschool.co.
Homeschool.
Co. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. We are co-doing
Yeah,
this
and
together.
that's the entire category, a catalog of all the courses that are currently available. And
Oh, check that
the yoga of allowing is one of the the primers to get into inner reconciliation. And I coined that phrase because it is very much like the asanas of yoga. In hatha yoga, right? Not vinyasa where the flow and it's more athletic. It's the kind of yoga where you get into a pose and you hold it for a while, right? And the whole idea is to just kind of watch the body as it's adjusting itself, right? And so eventually it gets all the right motions, the right muscles, everything is in, and it can hold it absolutely perfectly. Same thing like riding a bike, right? There's a million little corrections that it has to make that at first it can't, but eventually there's literally thousands of tiny corrections going on to keep you upright on that bike. And in yoga, that's the same thing. There's thousands of little corrections going on to keep the pose in exactly the right place. And then you notice your shoulder is sagged, and but eventually the whole thing just kind of comes into a unity. Right, and it's a perfect model for allowing because it's just an internal posture. It's an internal asana where you are taking this position of simply of being present with what you're feeling. And the old habit is to run away and the like, which is kind of like falling out of the pose, and you keep bringing yourself back into it, right? Until you're able to hold yourself there in the presence of even the most difficult material coming to the surface, because you've practiced the asana, right? And that's why I grab that term, because it's exactly the same. It's just a completely inner posture, right? Because it doesn't matter what position your body is in to do this. You can do it anytime.
I absolutely love that. An internal posture. Oh, that was so good. You reminded me of something that I forgot. Actually, I used to do as a young woman. So, 1920s and stuff. Whenever I had let's call it what could have been or was going to be a trauma, who knows? I would shake. Like I even talking about it with somebody who I was very safe with, like my mother or something, and revealing something that, oh my gosh, this happened to me and I'm upset about it. I'm scared. All these things. I would shake uncontrollably and I couldn't stop it. But I think it's because that all those little muscles were probably going. Oh, run, get away from this. Like, don't talk about this. And I don't do it anymore. I totally forgot that I even used to do that. That's so weird. I guess I self-inquired most of it away, hopefully.
Yes. Yeah, well, some of the stuff we just outgrow as we mature. Some of the stuff falls away. It's the stuff that lingers that we have to pay attention to.
Yes. And if there's anything lingering, we would love to help you with this, or, at least point you into a direction that might help you. So this is the point where on Om School Live that we take we've had, a recess. I'm happy to have invited you over to omschool.co and to just have a look through those catalogs, see what goodies are in there. Something will call to you. I know it. But we'll read through the comments now, see what questions or things have come up. And I know that Mary was sharing quite a bit early there. And I'm going to go back. And Robert and Jennifer and everybody here. So, okay, and so my new daughter-in-law had a photo photoshopped with a friend who does photoshopping, and their pictures looked like
Read the next one, just the next one down.
Oh,
they look like two mannequins.
Two mannequins. There we go, two mannequins. Yes, and you know what's interesting with actual photos? We have a story about how we want to remember those photos. And so it's to each our visual thing. We want to remember that, we didn't have that big zit or food in our teeth or extra 10 pounds or whatever it is, or that wasn't so sunny. It was just throw a little bit of sunshine in there, and unicorn floating around too, please.
Yes.
But you can do anything with these digital things. And
yeah, you can.
And Mary was sharing.
I saw one video where the guy literally took a pizza and photoshopped it into a woman. The pepperoni became the bikini. Oh
my God!
Just taking piece parts and reshaping them. He took a slice of pizza and then it was this woman.
That's fun, but wow!
It's fascinating. It's fascinating, but it's like, okay, well, you used to say, the photo doesn't lie. No, and it lies all the time.
That's true.
It never tells the truth anymore.
That's right. The photo, that's what we need.
The camera never lies. Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. Mary continued on here, just about different beliefs about ourselves. She was also anorexic, and she learned a lot about self-hatred from that experience. And those are symptoms, right? The anorexic would have been a symptom.
Yes, yeah. Oftentimes, something like that it's somebody for whatever reason just does not feel like they have any control in their life, and they need a feeling of control, and they find there is something they can control. They can stop eating. Mm-hmm. They can control that, and it's true. But obviously, you want to get back the sense of the mastery and dominion of your own life. Mm-hmm. And not just one little corner of it, right? That's really what we're crying out for. We're all crying out for that, we all want a more just world in which I am free to actually realize, to self-actualize, to realize my potential, and not be forced to serve others' interests. Right? This is what we all want, and so when that doesn't happen, we try to grab onto something that we can control, and therefore we become religious and evangelical, or become a racist or a misogynist. We take on these kinds of characteristics to give ourselves some kind of a sense of power. Right? And then I, which justifies all sorts of horrid behavior, right? But it becomes justified, and the enemy becomes, this is the enemy that's taken that away from me. The truth is, nobody has taken anything away from you. You have simply been seduced into giving it away.
Ooh, yes.
The devil
Ooh.
can't make you do anything. He's got to convince you that you want to.
Yes. Oh, that was so good. That would be, I don't know, but I'm going to ask this. Is that a self-inquiry question, or just a question? Where in my life have I been seduced in giving my power away? Or is that just more of a question?
No, that's a way of, I mean, to recognize, every time we say it all the time, I have no choice. Yes, you do.
Yes. Ooh.
It's never true. The thing is that there may not be a choice available to you that you like. That's different, right? It's, I have to work because I have to have money. Okay, you don't have to. You don't have to work, but if you're going to do that, you have to bear the consequence of it. But it's empowering, even if you continually choose to do it, because I'd rather work a job I hate than to be on the street. To recognize I'm making that as a choice is very empowering. That's very different than saying, I have to do it. Right? What you're really saying is, I don't have any options available to me that I like.
Yeah.
Now, if you recognize that that's the case, you're naturally going to start looking for options that you do like. It's going to happen. Right? Inevitably. But if it's just, I hate it and there's no way out, well, then there's no way out. Because there's no way out? No, because you said there was no way out. We are infinitely powerful. This is why you have to be seduced to give away your power. Because it's your power. Your inner authority, and I don't mean by power over others. I mean your inner authority, which is only activated when you know who you are.
I have been in some situations in my life where I literally, and I'm sure everybody here has, that I don't have a choice. And seduced to give that power away. And there's one I have to share. This is that I met a lady who, it's such a tough one still. Don't even want to make a judgment on it, but she was hoarding cats. And you guys all know that I just love cats so much. And so there's a story like, well, they need her help, and other ones as well, this is a little too much. And I was completely seduced into helping this lady, to a point where I was now I'm doing things I could never have thought I would do, giving stuff and really, I didn't want to take care of all these hundreds of cats either. And so I thought, if I left, I have no choice. I have to stay now. But, it's so interesting how I did eventually have to leave that situation. And things will work. I won't say work out. Things will go on. Life will go on. I couldn't hold the whole thing together by myself. But I was making that choice. Yeah. I thought it was I had no choice. But I just didn't like the choice. I didn't. Yeah.
That's the truth, yes. You didn't like the idea of leaving them with her. Right? Because there's just no way they could have been well taken care of, yeah. Right? But that also took so much from you, right? Mm-hmm. Neither was a good choice. Neither was a happy choice, and so we find ourselves, choosing the lesser, right? The lesser painful. But if we recognize that it is always a choice, something inside opens up to say, okay, well, maybe there's a way I can create some better choices, some better options.
Yes. And
But as
doing
long
this,
as I believe it's not my choice, that's not going to be available. The mind, your attention just won't go there because you've already said it doesn't exist, and the attention will, oh, okay, and it will completely pass over any opportunity that might show up.
that was a golden nugget right there, everybody. I have to say that if you say there's no choice, you are not open to, and it won't reveal itself. Possibilities will not show up.
They
But once
can't.
you do, yeah,
They
that
can't.
is
You
so
won't see
true.
them. You won't see them. They could bite you in the ass, and you'll just go, ow, ow, and off you go. I mean, you won't pay any attention to it. You know, that the opportunity that could be staring you right in the face, you simply won't see it.
Yeah.
Because you've already made up your mind that it doesn't exist.
And then by opening that door and saying, well, doing some self-inquiry work, you don't have to find the answer. You don't have to look for it, but now you're just open to it. And I like easy.
Yes, the energy is opening, and if the energy is opening, the nervous system, the attention gets the message that, okay, you're now to take in this. Whereas before it was saying, don't take in this, right? And it's just a mechanism. You go, take this in, oh, okay, and it opens the lens. It really is that simple, and it happens automatically. You don't have to make it happen. You don't have to do anything except recognize that you have been constraining yourself. And and sometimes that can be quite radical. I mean, the women as second-class citizens. You can't do that because you're a woman, right? Right? And look how long it took for women to challenge that and say, that's bullshit. And it is, right? But so many people said, well, I can't do that because I'm a woman, right? And of course, it was never true, right? It was never, ever true. But because the belief was so strong, the opportunity to prove it false was never thought of as an option. But little by little, some radical leaders show up and say, yes, it is an option. What are you talking about? Right? And of course, culture reacts because culture wants things to stay the way they were. Women should be, we're heading back there. I mean, Abrahamic religions. Oh my God. Yeah.
Well, the beauty with this all is that we can witness in life, in our all the transformations actually along the way in culture. I think that yes, possibly the lens has been opened up, and then whether somebody else sees it and they inspire you to open up, or you do that work on your own, and then you are called to look. I love that we can, if we can start there, it's like, look at your life and just say, where am I perhaps photoshopping? Where does it feel some fear or some, out of control or misalignment, and begin that process. And if you would like any help, that we absolutely certainly can help you, and we'd love to. You just need to let us know. And
yes, it always boils down to the internal relationship you have with your own feelings, so that you get the inner space to be able to bring your attention inward. Right? Because as long as I'm holding this idea that my feelings are bad, right, or they're difficult, and I can't deal with the discomfort, and I shouldn't be feeling that way, I won't go there.
Right.
I simply won't. But if suddenly it's like, well, maybe they aren't as bad. Maybe they've just gotten bad press. Maybe they're not as bad as I thought they were. And then little by little, well, yeah, it's an uncomfortable feeling, but it's not killing me. I don't have to run away from it. And then eventually you realize, my God, it's just my feelings. That's all they are. What's the big deal?
And our feelings change. And it's based.
Of course.
Oh, yes. I was going to say, wait, does the story change or do our feelings change? But our feelings are just feedback from what's going on at that present moment.
Yeah, feelings are always adaptive and reactive.
Yes.
Yeah, they're always responding. They're never initiating. They're always reactive, right? And when there's nothing to react to, you're at peace. But the mind is very active, creating things to react to all of which are imaginary, right? And so that, that, as I was outlining before, to get out of the mind and into the feelings, you find the feeling directly. You see that simply the nervous system as it interacts with the environment with no story, right? And that's where peace begins to emerge.
Well, thank you for showing us where peace emerges. I like that. GP Walsh, it is wonderful to be here with you on Homeschool Live every Tuesday. Please join us. And yes, we'll keep on checking into the comments and stuff throughout the week. But just thank you so much. Oh, there we go. Something came up. Do we need to answer? No.
Sorry. No,
Okay.
I just bumped it. That's all.
There you go. Well, thank you for your comments. We'll continue as I continue to check in with them and watch them. But otherwise, we hope to see you the next show. Until then, on Homeschool Live.
Bye, everyone.